Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands
upcoming tours.
and show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of January 29th, 2024 Escaper.
Welcome back. The fifth episode of All That Jam for January 2024. We have our interview with Escaper coming up. We have a great question we asked about festivals since last week's episode was so festive coming up. And we also have the top three stories of the week. How are you doing, Amanda?
Kevin, hey. Well, personally, more and more excited for festival season every day. Music has been a little bit light for me this past week. I've been traveling, but excited over the next couple weeks. Going to be seeing some great local shows in Denver.
Yeah, I'm still on the Spafford train.
Nice.
So, well, I mean, it's the only game in town. You don't have to pay for anything. Crazy. I
Yeah.
I saw that Neil Young is going to. He did a private show last November, and they're releasing it. Neil Young and Crazy Horse. So, very interested in what that's going to look like.
I agree. And DJ Brownie tweeted something on Saturday morning I wanted to share too. Speaking of Spafford, he said, I love waking up to the news that Spafford, Lotus, and the Disco Biscuits all had sold out shows last night. The jam band scene is on fire right now. What a time to be alive. How awesome is that?
It is, and those guys are on fire. Did you see
Mhm.
the? Did you get to listen to the first part of the space rock opera, whatever they're doing that they released?
I haven't, Kevin, because I've been out and about, but this week I really want to check it out. Did you listen to it?
I did the first part. It's I think songs. I think some of it has been done before. They've been playing with it for the past year, but yeah, I'm fascinated that they're finally laying down a whole thing. I don't think Helicopter or the other one were ever put as a full album. I might be wrong. The real Disco Biscuits people comment, let me know I was wrong on that.
They will. I mean, it's just kind of reassuring, right?
Yeah.
Someone out there is going to make sure that we got
Right.
it.
And we got a little weird thing. Goose changed their socials, picture on their socials. Apparently, it's an album cover. Is that what we're hearing?
that's the that's the primary guess right now because I think people are just hoping that would be it because it would explain any kind of art, even some Freemason type symbols.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this was recorded over the past 6 weeks that they've been off. Did they already have another drummer on board? I mean, there's a lot of questions with that.
Yeah, lots of questions and a lot of people that are really just hanging on for some info of any kind. So you put something like that out there, change your cover, change your profile picture. It immediately just became the biggest topic of the day.
Which is fun.
It is
Fun
fun.
stuff.
I like
They don't
that.
play till there's some festivals in May, so I guess they
Yep.
have time. But speaking of festivals, why don't we jump into
The top three stories of the week.
Awesome. Okay, Kevin, got the stories for this week. So, this first story is maybe a little bit less of a story, more of a great interview. This was in Goldmine magazine just a couple days ago. And this was a really in depth article focusing on the fact that, as we all know, summer music festivals all over the country, the push is on, right? We're getting lineups, we're getting information, seeing everywhere what's going to be happening. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot of new festivals, at least new to me, smaller festivals happening. So it's great. It's super exciting. Most festivals follow a very similar format, regardless of what kind of music might be there. So this article talks about the evolution of the traditional festival model that has worked. And this is All Good Presents, which I know we were talking about, Kevin. Maybe it's more originally of an East Coast thing because I grew up in Jersey. You're from Maryland. I remember All Good from many, many years ago. But they have their 4848 festival that's not that old. It's just been happening since 2019 in West Virginia. So, not one of like the old guard, but All Good itself has been around for over 25 years, leading promotions for concerts, festivals, in that mid Atlantic space. And Tim Walther, who you've met before, the founder, there's a new book coming out that's going to detail his life and his experiences. But basically, this article talks about how he launched All Good with a fax machine, no music industry experience, as I think you remember too, um, and basically doing it himself, grassroots street promoter. That's what I remember. And it started with bluegrass, that festival, and now it's really changed into something pretty awesome. I'm curious your thoughts on All Good, but also that festival too. If you've been there, I haven't been there before.
Right. To All Good?
Not All Good. I used to go to All Good. This is the 4848 festival.
No, I have not. I have not. But years ago, there was a place in Brandywine, Maryland called Wilmer's Park. And old man Wilmer was cool. Like, you walked in, if you could look over the bar, they'd serve you. It was that kind of place. And there was a band called the Jello Boys, and there was a reggae band. I think New Potato Caboose was big at that time. Jaw Works was the reggae band that was around, and they would have like the Back to Books Boogie and stuff like that. And one year we're hanging out with this guy Tim, and he's talking about how he's going to start promoting festivals and he's going to do this. Well, it's been 30 years, and boom, he's doing it, and there's somebody's writing a book about him. So that's pretty crazy.
It is. And I guess to be a little bit more specific about what exactly All Good has done with this festival that maybe was different at the time. So, the approach to building the bill itself for the 4848 festival is unique, but it's advanced the concept, looking at it as a destination vacation that is within the confines of the continental U.S. And it has one of the best return rates for fans. That's, I think, one of the highest in the business. So Walther recognized that as kind of concert goers like us have kind of grown up, right? Our tastes had and our needs have changed. So he kind of made that festival at Snowshoe, which is a really top rated kind of resort. It's huge. And there's accommodations, everything from studios, 3-bedroom condos, tons of different packages, you know, and basically you can do RV camping, tent camping. It has literally everything: shuttles, ski lift access, but it doesn't take away from the festival itself, and it's not going to cost you the same as those international festivals that don't have all those options either.
Now, is this the same ski slope place that Mo did Modown before? Tunic, New York, or something like that? I might be making it
Modown.
up.
So Modown, I know, used to do Snow Ridge
Okay,
in
Snow Ridge, right,
Turin.
right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the same, but I definitely remember hearing that. Different spot, but the idea is really interesting. And Mo has played there. They played at 4848 too.
Yep, I've been to a few All Goods when they were at Wilbur's Park. I think the first one was there, and then it moved to West Virginia to that place for a while. I haven't been to a festival like that in a long time. That's kind of a young man's game.
That one especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marvin's Mountaintop. I did go to a couple of those earlier in the the history, and it was great. But I feel like back in the late 90s, there were some really good festivals. I also had far fewer needs myself. So I get it. This article definitely spoke to me for sure. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to hear these success stories and people that have really been able to take an idea, or in Tim's case, as he says, he wanted to do better. And he really has made it happen. So that's our first story of the week. Second story, so I love learning about the back end of the music industry. And Kevin, we just talked with Solar Circuit out of Philly a couple days ago. That clip will be dropping soon. And interestingly, one of the things that Becca was talking about was at some point outside of maybe their recording space or where she lives in Philadelphia, She had been hearing this kind of repetitive cicada noise. And after, I think she said 10 minutes, they had recorded this and ended up using it in their music. And they're kind of electronica focused. So I just saw news about a book called Ears to the Ground, written by Ben Murphy. He's a music journalist, coming out in May. But the purpose of this book is it explores different environments where sounds have been recorded by artists. Everything from remote bird colonies, burial grounds, Antarctica, I mean, you name it. And it's going to be such an interesting read. I can't wait to get into it.
Now, when I think of recording, field recording, nature sounds and stuff, my first thought always goes to the movie industry and people who do the sound for movie industry. So it's fascinating. And now my head's thinking, which ones do we know? And the thing that jumps out the top of my head is the crickets in Blues for Allah that Mickey used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So that's the
had
one
to
that
come.
jumps out.
They have to come from somewhere, and I think it is easy to either not realize what you're listening to, depending on how that field sound has been altered or changed. But like to your point too, we kind of just accept those nature sounds or whatever it is as maybe just part of a recording. I've never stopped to think about who actually recorded it in the first place. So that's super interesting. Definitely keep your eyes open for this book. I think it's going to be really interesting for those of us that just like to geek out on certain things. So super excited for that. And then this last story, I am excited. I'm also kind of on the fence. So Purple Rain is being developed as a stage musical. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, but this was just announced very recently, I think just a week or two ago. So that adaptation, of course, they're going to have tons of songs that so many of us know and love. Um, but yeah, there's going to be a book written by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins. He's a MacArthur Genius Grant winner. You've got a lot of good people involved, but I'm not sure. What do you think about this, Kevin? Initial thoughts?
I just can't help but think of the guy. I hope they have the club owner in it. Nobody digs your music but yourself, kid.
Was that Morris? Oh man, they
No,
had
not
they had
Morris.
to.
The guy with the he had the tracksuit on, and he wore the bowler hat. Who I guess he was the owner of First Avenue in the movie. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
so
yeah.
on board. I am so on board because the movie itself almost works like a musical. I think it would be so easy to adapt to something that's completely familiar, and you'd walk in and not be like, this is not what I was expecting. I think you'd walk in and it would open up with a rock song with Let's Go Crazy and then work its way through the love story.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think just in and of itself, absolutely. I mean, it was designed. That whole movie was designed around the music. I mean, it's an amazing feat what Prince was able to do because at that time when he was writing all the songs and putting the movie together, he was also writing for other bands and producing other music at the time.
He
Um,
wrote all the songs for the time, right? I think he wrote
mhm.
all the songs that they recorded
He
too,
did,
and
which are
Apollonia
great. That's right, and it was all at the same exact point in time that was happening. Because
and
of
Manic
course,
Monday. He threw in Manic
yeah,
Monday for the
just
Bangles while he
little
was.
extra, just a little like, I have an hour or two. Let me just get that down. So, and the book that is written about the making of Purple Rain itself, it's more about the recording process, is an incredible book and super detailed. And it really shows you when we say prolific, I mean, that's a great word to use and all, but one person driving so much creation. It's like unbelievable. So I agree. I mean, I think it's kind of tailor made for something like that because it was a musical drama film, is how it's labeled.
Have they ever released an expanded version of the album with like different studio tracks like Dylan does with like the bootleg series? That would fascinate me to hear how something like Dove's Cry developed.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, there's the expanded deluxe edition, which
has like the
has some
12 inches. God
remasters.
probably has
Yeah,
God on it.
it gives you the remasters of the original tapes. Pretty elaborate, actually. So, I mean, we have that. Um,
We got to
but
get you into his studio so you can go through the
oh,
masters, all the
the
stuff he
vault.
recorded.
I mean, the way that the vault is described in the Purple Rain book, it's hard not to imagine it as what it was, right? But to answer your question, yeah. So that deluxe edition did have at least 10 or more previously unreleased songs that had been recorded, because there were so many songs that of course were written and just didn't make it, into the first one. So yeah, pretty awesome stuff. So we'll see. There's no date for when this production is going to happen. There's a lot that is going to be taking place before that, but it is going to happen, and so just have to wait and see.
I feel like that is the trend on Broadway. The Tina Turner thing, you're getting you get all these things of musicians and people want to hear the hits. The Frankie Valli one went on forever, whatever that was called. With
It did. It definitely did. Yeah, I remember. When that came out, was that the Jersey Boys one?
yes, Jersey Boys, that's what it was
Yeah.
called. My
Yep.
mom's even
Absolutely.
been to see that. That's how big that one is. It's either that or they Disneyfy something. You'll get like the Princess and the Frog or something done as a musical, or Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it also just in general reminds me of very similar themes in music too. We talk about sometimes, the bands that are still touring. People like what they know when you're
There you
talking
go.
about big scale. So yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
it will be fun. Speaking of skill, we have our interview coming up right now, and we have Will Hansa and Phil Cadet from a band called Escaper out in New York. Uh, it's great stuff. Just go listen to it. I'm not even going to go through 100 accolades. Just dig them up. We're going to have the links down in the bottom to their Bandcamp. But this first thing, we get into the songwriting process. We get into some improvisation and what we love to ask about listening back and the disconnect, because it seems that most people, there's some sort of a disconnect between how they felt and the actual product. So let's check that out. We'll see you on the other side. What is your process? The song's been road tested that you played on.
Those had all been definitely played out quite a bit. So we had been crafting those songs over the course of like the past year, and then of course we'd had we they basically debuted the entire thing in those forms at Bowery Ballroom, right? And then we went into the shop and recorded them with Sam and Luke. So it was the same kind of lineup, same kind of feel,
Right.
and so yeah, it was the spaceship, and the rest of the associated songs. It was essentially like three songs in a reprise, and we basically put those all together, and it was really nice to like just be a kind of a live in studio kind of function as well, because as opposed to like having a layered approach to it, we were actually able to really capture kind of a live element of that sound as well.
Yeah, and Spaceship. This is a song that came out of. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn off my Outlook so I don't get those dings anymore. Um, this is a song that came out of the pandemic, and so essentially, you have a song about we're called Escaper, right? So the idea of breaking free of confinement, and of course, we were all confined during the pandemic. And the spaceship is the same idea of getting out of the confinement that you have and blasting off, but it's also this idea um, of picking each other up. So I got the space, if you got the spaceship. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek idea, but it's that sort of idea of if you have my back, I'll have yours. If you pick me up, I'll pick you up. We're picking each other up, and we're going places. And as far as process, I would say that with that song, a lot of times Phil and I will banty around some lyric ideas, and like, oh, here's the spaceship, like, lyric that works. And then sometimes one of us will come with a more constructed lyrical form. But then again, there's some times where like there's a song "No Strings" from our previous album Apotheosis that came out in 2020, and yeah, I remember Phil coming to the practice space being like, I kind of always wanted a song that sort of went and then sort of kind of going off that, and sort of words started coming out like let's say this, that's can't be disrespecting me, I could be your remedy, there's just sort of things sort of come out that way. It's not very often that will come to the table with a complete song and say, okay, everybody play these parts now. In fact, it almost never happens.
I would say it's usually great to like have like you get a whole vision of what the song sounds like first, and it'll like have elements of many different things. Usually a particular rhythmic motif, so it's like, and it's got to be simple. It's got to be like, and it has to have elements of everything. So you have the motif, you have the rhythm, you have the tempo, and you have the attitude. And once you have that, you can actually craft a song. I feel like starting with a lyric first doesn't work. Starting with like a chord progression first doesn't work. You have to have an energy. You have to have a real feel for the groove before you can write the song. And so that's why I think Spaceship kind of came about like that. And, being based off of kind of just like jamming around and making that work, you can realize more. I think I came up with elements of the chorus, on a bike ride. That's always a good way to get like to develop something. So you have it going through your head, and then you take a bike ride, and the rest of it can come to you. So it's interesting how like I feel like the best ideas don't come often through like sitting down and writing and then presenting to people and saying, hey, here's my song. It's more like, hey, I got this really great idea for an energy and an attitude. And then you bring that to people, and people are like, hey, I get that. I know. And Will can be like, hey, I know where you're at, and here's where I can go with that. And then you can actually create something that's more of a vibe, as opposed to a, hey, play this and don't ask questions. That's not going to work.
That's pretty much, we were founded on the idea that everybody in the band they're good at their own instrument, and so we want them to bring their voice to that. That's really important part of it.
They're navigating the creative process as a band while maintaining everyone's own musical vision. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it gets refined over time. Sometimes like we'll play a song, like a sort of newer song, in front of folks, and like as soon as you play in front of people, you sort of kind of understand the live energy of it and what's working and not, and say, maybe we need to cut this here or there, or like and then with the studio thing, it's like, okay, well, here's the idea, but like when live, maybe we're gonna like jam out this part for 10 minutes.
Right, exactly. Do you guys get deep into improvisation, or do you try to stick more to what you have as the blueprint for the song?
I think we are unabashedly a jam band, but I think it's kind of this sort of a balance, because we have wanted to make sure that we're writing some good structures and like hooks and memorable things that can be repeated, to sort of really understand what the piece is. But in the moment, you want to make with the best moment possible, and sometimes something clicks that happened just in that moment that never happened before, and it's like, oh, let's keep on going with this. And I think we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, but we're trying to extend and allow for our at the moment talents to take over. We just played a show at Putnam Place in Saratoga Springs, New York, and we had an hour set, and we did 5 songs. So the point being that we left a lot of space for improvisation to take over. If things are going well and you're developing something, go with it. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where we need to go back to the pre-written part.
Oh yeah, I mean, one thing that I think that has been a goal has been the idea of making sure that the jam is part of the song. and the song is part of the jam. One thing that I've always disliked and tried to avoid is the idea of like, okay, here's a song I wrote, beginning, middle, end. Okay, now here we're going to jam. And now we're going to go back to this song I wrote, beginning, middle, end. And too often I feel like the danger is that the jam has nothing to do with the song. And you end up with something that is less in the world of like, you know, being part of it and more like commentary, you know? And so,
Sure.
you know, I like the idea that in Escaper, we've always tried to make our songs come out of the jams rather than make the jam come out of the song.
Do you guys listen? Do you guys record your shows?
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually, we have a couple live albums out, including the that Bowery Ballroom show from last year, another one from 2019. We don't have a lot of archival stuff, in part because of a lack of strong recordings. But you know, we do have some stuff out on YouTube and stuff like that.
Where I was going with that is, do you listen back after the show? And is there a disconnect when you listen back to how you felt when you walked off stage about what happened?
I usually, for my part, I have to wait at least a week before I can listen to it, you know,
Let it mellow.
and then I have to listen to it. I have to listen to it at least 5 times before I can stop hearing the things that I wish I hadn't done, whatever they may be, you know, and then I can actually, but I have to get my mind past the critical stage before I can actually experience what happened and I can understand what happened. So sometimes it'll be like, you know, like a few months. I think that's the thing about it, you know, like listening to your own music and your own stuff. It's like I listen to somebody else's music, you know, I'm just like, this is great. I'm having such a good time. And then you listen to yourself and you're like, okay, is literally everything perfect? You know, I don't know. That's just me.
We're very self-critical, and we don't want to let anybody hear our mistakes, but no one actually knows that are mistakes. But you know, at the end of the day, though, there's sometimes we get source material just out of jams, because there's sometimes when you're jamming and there's no way you're going to remember it because you're so in that zone. You're just like, you know, in the beta wave zone, and it's just happening, man. You know, and then I totally forget what I did, and then I go back and I listen and go, well, that was really cool. We should isolate that and then turn that into a thing, you know. And there's been some songs that have come out of that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great way to do it. I mean, Fish famously, the Sicket disc and all that was created from scraps. I guess a lot of Story of the Ghost was ultimately
one of my favorite albums.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Under the influence of Brian Eno, I like to call it.
A very well produced album for sure.
Very well produced.
Coming off Billy Breeze, which is another well produced album with Steve Lillywhite. But
yeah, oh yeah, that was their Beatles. That was their
Beatles album. Pop album.
What can I do? I like to oversimplify things. So
yeah.
Hi, Kevin. We have a little bit more with Escaper coming up soon. But before we do that, just our housekeeping as usual. Want to make sure that everyone is following us on social media at All That Jam Pod. And that includes YouTube also. Make sure that you're heading over there and subscribing so you can get access to everything that we've got there. One of the things that is super important too is that wherever you are listening to podcasts, if you can give us a like, subscribe, whatever it is you can do, leave a review for us. We would really, really appreciate that. It does help quite a bit, and it makes me smile when I see those too. So, you know, it's great. Now, Kevin, I know we have a lot coming up this week as usual. Do you want to tell us what's on the calendar?
Yeah, we have tomorrow on Tuesday, Dave Halchak about his Wake Up and Live Bob Marley tribute. Bob Marley's birthday's coming up, and he has some shows this weekend out in Colorado. I think it's 4 nights he's doing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and actually I'll be doing merch for the Ophelia show that you'll hear about in the clip. So super excited for that.
Nice. So go out there if you're in Denver. On Wednesday, we were catching up with Knives, some of our favorite guys. They had a huge last year. They have big plans this year. We get into all that. On Thursday, Michael Falzerano. We got to speak to him. If you don't know who he is, he played with Hot Tuna for years, New Riders. There's something called the Englishtown Project. But what we got into was Hot Tuna in 1983, which was a much maligned tour people didn't get the hot tuna they expected, but it was the first time they got back together since the 70s. And Michael was with them well into the 80s. And I think Hot Tuna's doing their Farewell Electric tour this year. So they've been playing since 83. They've kept it together for 40 years, and he was part of making that happen. Friday, Lena Langendorf won Langendorf United. We heard about the Ethio Jazz and how she got into that before, and this is the band that she's assembled. Again, head over to Bandcamp. Check it out. Saturday, Getting to Know the Settlement. They're out of West Virginia. Really good jam band. I guess they don't mind being called jam band. I think we got into that, but not in this clip. And then Sunday, Ryan Lerman about Scary Pockets. If you've never seen Scary Pockets, look them up on the YouTube. It is fun stuff.
All right, Kevin, thanks for running down what we've got coming up this week, but we still have more with Escaper. So let's get back into that. In this clip, we're going to hear about bringing different influences together and also some takes on the industry at large.
Let's get back into the music. We got what, like another 5-10 minutes. All right. Your music has jazz, rock, funk. How do you navigate between the different genres to create a cohesive sound?
No, it's tough. You know, I mean, being genre specific is tough in our own right. We're very, as you say, cross genre, and it's hard to like label us when when our record label asks us, all right, what do you want to have us under? Like rock, alternative, jazz? We've been, it's like none. I don't know, how do you like put ourselves in so that people can find us on Spotify or whatever. But at the same rate, there's sometimes it's like it depends on the song. Be like, okay, we want this song to be maybe a little more jazzy, loungy. Maybe this other song's going to be like just super hard funk. So it kind of can depend from song to song.
I think it's really, I agree. I think it's really important not to think about what you're doing and how it fits into. You're drawing influences from lots of different people. You think about somebody like, a legendary musician like David Bowie. I mean, like, did he put out his records and say, this is my funk record, this is my jazz record, this is my rock record? No, he put it all out and said, this is my David Bowie record, whatever the case may be. So it's like, I think it's clear to me that all jazz, rock, funk, soul, pop, they all draw from each other. I feel like, depending, like there's certain things where if you put out a record and say this is jazz, a lot of people will say that's not jazz. Like if you put, so you have to be careful by announcing that to the world that you're making a jazz record, because there's a lot of baggage that comes with that and a lot of maybe requirements, right? Prerequisites. Like, have you spent time like releasing records of standards? Like, do you go to the jam sessions? Have you played down at Smalls? Like, if not, are you a jazz guy? So I think it's important to say, like, hey, this is our music. Yes, we draw on, like, we stand on the shoulders of giants. You know what I mean? And obviously, we are strongly influenced by jazz, rock, funk, whatever like background we might have. And that's our music, and here it is. And hopefully, we have like made some sort of appropriate synthesis of all the music that came before us.
This might be sort of a sophomoric answer, but I feel like at the end of the day, you got it if it makes you feel good. And there's something to be really said about that. If you're not moving yourself or making yourself feel good with what you're doing, then how is it going to make anybody else be moved by it? And when I'm either creating new songs in the practice room, or if it's a live jam, my intention is, besides understanding the structures of the notes and everything, my intention is this working? Is this making my hair stand on an end or not? And I want to go in that direction that it's working and keep on pushing that direction.
That's crazy. So do you guys have to get out of here, or?
We're good for a few more minutes, I think.
Okay. How do you overcome the challenges with being in a band that in a world where playing live is basically the way to fund a band?
Well, that's the way it was for all of time until about 100 years ago when recorded music became a thing. Of course, there was written music, and then that was used to recreate music, right? Before that, but it was really a short window of time that the recorded music became an asset. Um, and now that that's out the window, it's back to do the live performances. And I think it's a very interesting experience. I mean, I really gotten back into doing live music myself about maybe 10 years ago after some time off. And for me, the live experience is such a life affirming time that I live for it. And I'm not necessarily looking to pay the rent off what I do with Escaper. If I want us to be self-sustaining. I want us to be able to pay for our touring and recording and stuff like that. And I certainly would take as much money as anybody wants to give us. But at the end of the day, it's I live for those live experiences and making them. And I do think there is a model now that it's starting to get there. I mean, let's also look at 20 years ago there were maybe you could make some money off an album and the recordings, but there was not a festival circuit you could go play so much anyways. There weren't like three small festivals in the region every weekend in the summer like there are now. And that's one reason again why I even started Escaper is because there started to become this actual path to get in front of people and play. And I think the festival scene is a really important part of that. And and doing venues and stuff is all very important as well. There's some great venues that we get to play. But that's what do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, it's nobody really gets into music. Well, if they get into music for the money, they certainly don't stay in it for it. And so it's just like you get into it because you can't help it. You can't help it. You have it's art. It's just art with sound, and you need to share it. Art is not meant to be kept to yourself. It's art is it's ways of relating the human experience in some way. And so whatever we can do to get our music out there and sharing it with others, we're going to keep doing that. And so we find different ways to navigate that. I myself, I'm a solo musician for money. I do like cocktail piano at restaurants and for private events. And it's great. I love doing it, but it's other people's music. And so when we get any opportunity to like play our own music in front of people, one, you need collaborators, so like you need the audience. So like getting the right people together and being able to play that in front of like people who are really digging the vibe, that's all there is.
All right, Kevin, another great interview. We have so much to share, and I know that we are going to have plenty of content to keep everybody busy for quite a while. But as you mentioned at the top of the show, we do like to talk about, different experiences that we as fans have, and sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to try to hit on something that's going to connect with people. But because of last week's show, as you mentioned, really talking about that festival scene, it got me thinking, what is it that people feel they absolutely must have when they're at a festival? And we left the question open. We talked about multi-day, single day, destination, because it really at the end of all of it, a festival is a festival, right? So you got some great traction on Twitter, got a little bit in the other social media pockets too, but wanted to just share some of the answers. So, Kevin, when I was looking through the responses, one thing I did notice is they're very male heavy, if I could say that. So, that might explain why some of these answers are what they are that I would have never thought of. So, we heard a number of people talk about gold bond powder. I know what it's used for. Not necessarily something I would need. Bunch of poop tent references, which I've actually never brought anything like that with me to a festival. I don't know if you have, but
No,
that
I
would
have not.
I don't know if that's something I would even want to deal with, especially if I'm having a couple cocktails. But we'll just leave it right there. But then, there were some things that I thought were maybe a little more universal, possibly. Um, Really practical items like duct tape, zip ties, alligator clamps, heavy duty tent stakes, tarps. I am that person that's going to forget a tarp 9 times out of 10. Probably. Um, Day bags, waterproof bags that they can have with them regardless of what is going on with the weather. That's a really great idea. You know,
Sandwich bags. You can
yes.
put your wallet and your money and your cigarettes or your whatever else in that. And if it rains and it's
Mhm.
sealed up in your pocket, you could be dripping wet, but you'll have a dry cigarette.
It's important. I mean, I used to pack those kind of things all the time when I was even traveling for work because you just never know when you're going to need just a little, container. So yeah, totally agree with that. Headlamps, at the Real Loco Ono on Twitter. That was a great one that is super helpful to have for so many reasons. Um, Baby wipes, your basic stuff here, water, yep, don't want to forget that. Solar powered lantern doubles as a charging station. That is pretty nice. Anything that can double as a charging station, because we also got some, external chargers, solar powered chargers. These days, that's important. You got to have your connection to the outside world on
I
hand.
was I was thinking I wanted a solar powered generator so you could just have all the power you needed to run computers or whatever.
I know, right? And then there were some fun ones too. Stickers, buttons as offerings to people. One of my favorite answers, though, was at Jelly Roller, a nice hotel and all that goes with it. Fabulous. Yeah. Um, Chick-fil-A sauce, liquid IV. There was just some really good stuff. And you know what? If nothing else, it's just interesting what is going to be at the top of somebody's mind when they think
Someone
about what
said
they need.
toilet paper, and I was like, "That's a good call. Have a roll of toilet papers because it's going to disappear in the spotter pots."
That's right. Baby wipes, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Have you seen the
LSD.
stuff that is a shower that you don't need? You just need a couple drops of water. You put it on this cloth thing. You clean with it, and then it just brushes off you. And it's apparently a shower in a bag, and all you need is like a little bit of water out of a bottle to wet the thing. I was like, I'm going to buy a box of them and sell them at Mondegreen.
No, I mean, I haven't, but that sounds like a much easier version of the sun showers that I know a lot of us used to bring
Right.
that were
The
not always the easiest.
the commercial on TV was pushing it for construction workers and who had to go to a meeting. He was working and had to go to a meeting, which was absurd, the whole premise of it. But little kids, and they showed all these little kids completely covered in mud, cleaning them up, and I was like, that's the selling point. That's your
Yes,
thing.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Like everyone really needs it, So yeah, some interesting stuff there. It's just fun to think about because are really getting into that part of the year now where we can start planning, and I just love it.
Yep, yep, I'm with you. All right. So next week, hold on a sec. I'm trying to do the end a little better. Let's see. Who did we talk to? Let's do all right. Okay. So next week we're going to have Litz on our Monday show, and they're doing an album release with the end of next week in the 9th in Baltimore our friend Space Baconing with our friend Space Bacon opening, which I'm very excited about because I think it's going to be the first time I get to see both of them. But Space Bacon, the last time they played, I was a piece of poop and I just couldn't even get myself out of the house.
It
Um,
happens.
it happens. Well, we talked to Mark from the Disco Biscuits, and he was saying that. I was like, "Thank you." I was like, "You validated my existence."
Yes, exactly. We all have that, but I'm so glad you're going to get a chance to go to
Yeah,
those. It's going to be great.
yeah, it's going to be fun. And with that, I'll leave you with stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
All right, Kevin, have a great one.